The Chicago Bears just walked out of the owners' meetings and something doesn't add up. The moves, the meetings, even the rumors, they all point to a draft strategy nobody saw coming. Are they about to ignore their biggest need and shock the entire league on draft night? But what they're planning might be even more unexpected. The Chicago Bears walked into this offseason with one clear expectation: fix the defense, especially at safety. But coming out of the owners' meetings, something has clearly shifted, and it's raising serious questions about what this team is actually planning in round one. Because instead of doubling down on defense, all signs are suddenly pointing toward the offensive line, specifically left tackle. And that's where things get interesting. Reports suggest the Bears have been doing extensive homework on Caden Proctor, not just casual scouting either. We're talking pro-day visits, private meetings, and even rumored dinners with key decision-makers. That's not standard behavior unless a team is seriously considering pulling the trigger. Now here's the twist: this wasn't supposed to be a priority. On paper, Chicago already has options, but internally, there seems to be growing uncertainty about the long-term future at left tackle. Injuries, inconsistency, and lack of a true franchise anchor have quietly turned this into a bigger concern than fans realize. And Proctor fits exactly what modern offenses are looking for. He's massive, athletic, and surprisingly fluid for his size. In a system that relies heavily on outside zone blocking, his movement ability stands out, and that's something the Bears value heavily. Some scouts even believe he could develop into an elite interior lineman if needed, adding even more flexibility. But here's the real question. Do you spend a first-round pick on a position that isn't your most urgent need, or do you take the long-term cornerstone while you still can? Because if the Bears go this route, it sends a very clear message. They're not just trying to fix holes, they're trying to rebuild the foundation. And that could completely reshape how this draft unfolds for Chicago. But if they commit to offense this early, what happens to their biggest weakness? The Chicago Bears didn't just attend the owners' meetings, they may have quietly revealed their entire draft strategy, and it's not what most fans expected. Because instead of chasing big-name prospects or reaching for immediate needs, Chicago looks like they're preparing to play a much smarter and riskier game. Trading down. And not just once. There's growing belief that the Bears could actively move back in the draft, targeting teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, who are always aggressive when it comes to jumping up for specific players. And if that happens, it changes everything. Why? Because Chicago's current draft capital has a major flaw. There's a gap in the middle rounds. No 5th, no 6th. That's a problem for a team that still needs depth across multiple positions. So instead of forcing picks, they accumulate them. By sliding down just a few spots, they can turn one selection into 2, maybe even 3, without completely sacrificing talent. It's the kind of move that doesn't make headlines on draft night, but can quietly reshape a roster over time. And it signals something bigger. This front office might value depth over star power. They're betting that finding multiple solid contributors is more valuable than gambling on one big name, especially in a draft class that many believe is deeper than it is top-heavy. But here where it gets complicated. Trading down sounds safe, but it comes with real risk. Move too far back and you miss out on elite talent. Stay too conservative and you never land difference makers. It's a balancing act that can either build a contender or leave fans wondering what could have been. Some fans believe this is a disciplined, long-term approach. Others think it's playing it too safe when the team still lacks top-tier impact players. And if the Bears fully commit to this strategy, they might walk away with more players, but not necessarily the one player who changes everything. And what happens if that one player turns into a star somewhere else? The Chicago Bears might say they're building their defense the right way, but one decision in this draft could tell a very different story. Because instead of going after a proven, high-floor pass rusher, they could be preparing to take a gamble. And that gamble looks a lot like Gabe Aki's. Now on the surface, the numbers are exciting. His production didn't just improve, it exploded. From 4 sacks to 8 to 11 in his final season. That kind of growth grabs attention fast. It suggests a player who's still ascending, still figuring things out, and possibly nowhere near his ceiling. But that's only part of the story. Because when you dig deeper, things get a little more complicated. Despite the sack numbers, his overall run defense hasn't been nearly as dominant. Some metrics suggest he struggles to consistently hold the edge, and against stronger offensive lines, that weakness can get exposed. It's the kind of flaw that doesn't always show up in highlight reels, but absolutely shows up on Sundays. So now the Bears face a choice. Do they prioritize upside, betting on traits, athleticism, and development? Or do they go safer with a more polished edge rusher who might not have the same ceiling, but won't come with as many question marks? What makes this even more interesting is how well Aki's fits the physical mold that defensive coordinators love. He's got the size, the length, the frame, the kind of build that coaches believe they can mold into something special. And that's where belief starts to take over logic. Because once a team convinces itself it can unlock a player, that's when risks get taken. Some fans believe this could be a steal in the making, a future breakout star hiding in plain sight. Others see it as a classic overreach, chasing potential instead of proven consistency. And if the Bears make this move, they're not just drafting a player. They're betting on development over certainty. But what if that bet doesn't pay off when they need it most? The Chicago Bears came into this offseason with one issue everyone agreed on: the safety position needed fixing. It wasn't just a weakness, it was arguably the biggest hole on the entire roster. And yet, they might not address it the way fans expect. Because instead of going all in early, the Bears could wait and quietly target someone like Cameron Ramsey later in the draft. At first glance, that might feel underwhelming. No flashy first-round name, no headline-grabbing move, just a solid, steady prospect who doesn't dominate highlight reels. But when you look closer, the logic starts to reveal itself. Ramsey isn't the type of player who racks up interceptions or makes viral plays every week. That's not his game. What he does bring is something this defense has been missing: reliability. And that matters more than people think. His biggest improvement came in an area that often goes unnoticed: tackling. Just a year ago, missed tackles were a real concern, but in his most recent season, that number dropped dramatically. It shows growth, discipline, and a willingness to fix weaknesses, traits coaches value heavily. And in a defense that already has a ball-hawking presence like Kobe Bryant, that balance becomes important. You don't always need two playmakers. Sometimes you need one player to take risks and another to clean everything up. That's where Ramsey fits. He can play in space, support the run, and bring consistency on the back end. He's the kind of player who doesn't always get noticed until he's not there. But here where the debate begins. Is safe good enough? Some fans believe passing on elite safety talent early could come back to haunt this team. Others think waiting and finding value later is the smarter long-term move. Because if Ramsey develops into a dependable starter, this looks like a quiet win. But if he does, the Bears may have ignored their biggest problem when they had the chance to fix it. And that's the kind of decision that doesn't show up immediately, but can define an entire season. The Chicago Bears might walk away from this draft with a name nobody expected, but one that could end up changing their entire offense. And it starts with Mike Washington Jr. Because while most of the attention is going to the top running backs in this class, there's a growing feeling that Washington is being completely overlooked, and that could be a massive mistake. On paper, he checks almost every box. Size, he's got it. At over 220 pounds, he can run through defenders without slowing down. Speed, it's there. His testing numbers turned heads and proved he's more explosive than many expected. And versatility, that might be his biggest strength. He's not just a runner. He can catch out of the backfield, run real routes, and create mismatches against linebackers. In a modern offense, that kind of flexibility is incredibly valuable, especially for a team looking to evolve and become less predictable. But here where things get interesting. Despite all of that, he's not being talked about as a top-tier running back. Some analysts have him outside the top 3, others barely mention him at all, and that raises a serious question: what are people missing? Because when you compare his skill set to others in this class, the gap isn't as big as it seems. In fact, some fans believe he could end up outperforming several players drafted ahead of him. Of course, there is one concern that keeps coming up: ball security. Washington has had issues with fumbles during his college career. It's not constant, but it's enough to make teams hesitate, and at the next level, that's something that can't be ignored. So now it becomes a calculated risk. Do the Bears bet on the upside, a powerful, explosive Dewey-Tall back who could thrive in the right system? Or do they play it safe and go with a more polished option? Because if Chicago takes this chance, they might not just be adding depth to their backfield. They could be unlocking a weapon that nobody saw coming. But if he really is this good, why is everyone else passing on him? The Chicago Bears might not make headlines with their late-round picks, but this is where things could quietly define their entire draft. Because while everyone focuses on the big names early, it's these depth moves that often decide whether a roster actually works or falls apart. And one name starting to generate real intrigue is Tacario Davis. At first glance, he's not the flashiest corner in this class, but when you break down his traits, he fits exactly what this defense is trying to build: size, length, and speed, the kind of physical profile that allows a corner to play aggressive press coverage and disrupt receivers at the line. And that's critical, because the Bears' cornerback room isn't as stable as it looks. There have been inconsistencies, injuries, and unanswered questions about who truly locks down the CB2 role long-term. Adding someone like Davis isn't about instant stardom, it's about competition. And competition changes everything. But he's not the only piece of this puzzle. The Bears could also look to strengthen their defensive line rotation with someone like Zane Durant, a quick, disruptive interior presence who fits the mold of what modern defenses want. He's not built to just take up space, he's built to attack, penetrate, and create pressure from the inside. That kind of role might not always show up on the stat sheet, but it can completely change how an offense operates. And then there's the offensive side quietly being addressed too. Parker Brailsford might not start right away, but he brings intelligence, mobility, and the ability to develop into a long-term solution at center. In today's game, that position is more important than ever, especially in systems that demand communication and precision. Put all of this together and a pattern starts to emerge. The Bears aren't just drafting players. They're drafting fits. Players who align with a specific system, a specific identity, and a long-term vision. It's not about chasing headlines, it's about building something that works behind the scenes. But here's the real question. What happens if these quiet picks end up being the ones that matter most? Because sometimes it's not the stars, but the depth that decides everything. The Chicago Bears might look like they're having a quiet, calculated draft, but if you step back and connect all the moves, a completely different picture starts to form. Because this isn't random. This is a strategy. And it's one that not every fan is going to like. Instead of chasing the biggest names or making aggressive, headline-grabbing moves, the Bears seem locked into a different mindset. Build depth, trust development, and prioritize system fit over hype. You see it in the trade-down decisions. You see it in the types of players they're targeting. And you especially see it in how they're spreading their picks across multiple positions instead of going all in on one superstar. This front office isn't trying to win the draft. They're trying to build a roster. And that's a big difference. By moving back and collecting extra picks, they're giving themselves more chances to hit, more chances to find contributors, more chances to develop players who fit exactly what they want to run on both sides of the ball. It's a long-term play, one that requires patience, but also one that comes with real risk. Because while depth is important, star power still matters in the NFL. And that's where the debate begins. Some fans believe this is the smartest way to rebuild, stack solid players, avoid risky reaches, and create competition across the roster. Others think the Bears are passing on elite talent in favor of safe picks that might never become game changers. And in a league driven by difference makers, that's a dangerous gamble. Because at some point, you need players who can take over games, not just fill roles. So what happens if the Bears come out of this draft with a deeper roster, but no true stars? Did they build a foundation for long-term success? Or did they miss their chance to land the player who could change everything? Because if this strategy works, it could quietly transform Chicago into a complete, balanced team. But if it does, they won't just be questioned for who they picked, but for who they passed on.